Yes, I'm Richard James from Cottage Labs. When I saw the slot I'd got in the programme, I was a bit concerned that I was the last speaker on the day before the conference dinner, so that's an unenviable slot. That's been compounded by me having to follow probably the best presentation I've seen all week. But fortunately, I'm going to talk to you about open access compliance. So strap yourselves in. I obtained thrill ride that's to come. So what I actually want to talk to you about is Lantern, which you might have seen me, I might have forced a postcard on you at some point during the week, is a product, Cottage Labs' first product, and we're going to talk about the consequences of that in a minute. And what it is, well, what is it? It is, what have I written? It's a quick way to pull together metadata essential to calculating works compliance with an open access policy. So this diagram looks like a sort of weird cross between a light bulb and something you might see in a biology textbook. Gives you an idea of what sort of things it does. You basically feed identifiers into our system, and our system goes out to all of these different locations. So we're going out to Crossref, Europe PubMed Central, Core, publishers' websites, like I said, directly to the published articles. GRISP, which is a grant database in Europe. DOAJ, the Directorate of Open Access Journals, and Sherpa, and I'm sure that everyone is aware of many of these services. And we're putting out information from all of those services that's relevant to OA compliance measures, and I'll get into what those actually are in a minute. And what we get out at the end of it is a report for you, which basically tells you what the status of your articles are. Incidentally, assuming Rob doesn't mind, I'm quite happy to shout out if I've missed something that you want to hear more about, or if you've got a specific question for me at a given time. Yeah, okay. So I don't mind being interrupted. So what's the benefit of doing that? Why would anyone, sort of feel that that was necessary to use our piece of software to do this? And the benefits are really twofold. The first is that it's a massive reduction in effort. Before we released this, we were talking to universities to find out how they were managing their open access compliance. A lot of people are using enormous spreadsheets, several thousand line long spreadsheets, and going out and finding this information manually for themselves. So this was actually motivated by the desire to reduce the amount of effort that people are actually having to spend getting the information in the first place. We're not adding any information into the system. We don't do anything that's unique to us. All we are is a sort of labour-saving device. Okay? The information is in Core, it's in Sherpa Romeo, it's in all these other places that we go and look. You can go and look there for yourself. All we're trying to do is make life a bit easier. And in fact, to give you an idea of the scale, we recently went sort of live with some early adopters, and on the first day, one of our early adopters uploaded 41,000 identifiers into the system in one enormous spreadsheet. So that's the kind of scale of usage we're now imagining we might see. The other thing about it is you get some consistency and some accuracy. The results are, repeatable, assuming the sources don't change, and they are the same across all of the different kinds of data that you might get. So if a human being is doing this, they've got a license column and they're typing CC BY, CC BY, CC BY, and then they get bored and they start typing Creative Commons attribution. You find yourself in a position where actually normalising that data is now necessary and reporting across it is less easy. So we give the ability to make it easier to interact with the data that comes out of the system. So that's the sort of the practical why. But what about the actual why? Why does anyone actually care about this? And the answer is that we only really care because there are policies that people need to actually comply with. There are sort of three tiers of policies that we're kind of encountering. We're seeing a lot of, there are government policies. In the UK in particular, we have this thing called the REF. Who knows what the REF is? Okay, a few hands at the back there. The REF is basically our research evaluation framework. It's an exercise where the government decides how much money they can give to your institution. So it's really, really important for UK institutions. And it now has a requirement that materials, with some exceptions, have to be open access if they're going to be countable in the REF. So suddenly open access is incredibly important, which is nice. The other thing we see is, funders are imposing mandates, and even institutions are imposing mandates. And I've just some indicative numbers. Sorry, I say mandates, I mean policies. Not all of the policies are mandates. there are 79 funded policies in RoRMAP and 557 institutional policies in RoRMAP. Now, as I say, not all of them are mandated. Some of them are. You know, the obvious one in the UK is the Wellcome Trust. Is everyone familiar with the Wellcome Trust? Yeah. Okay, so in the UK, the Wellcome Trust is a very big independent funder. They fund a lot of biomedical research, and they recently put a stake in the ground and said, your stuff must be open access under these reasonably tight conditions, or we won't give you any more money. So the Wellcome Trust, so we're working with the Wellcome Trust to essentially police that policy, because, you know, as I said in bold, perhaps it's not being bold enough, an LA policy that you can't enforce isn't worth anything. You know, what's the point if you're not going to take the measures that you say you're going to take if you've got such a policy? And the Wellcome Trust are pretty serious about that policy. So they wanted a way to be able to enforce it. So that's what they're doing. So that's why it's necessary. So how does this process work? You know, this is, I guess, sort of like my effort to convince you that it's worth you going and having a look at Lantern, because it's reasonably straightforward and gives you a lot. Okay, there's sort of 4 steps, right? The first step is give us your identifiers. The second step is go and put your feet up. You don't need to do anything else until your results are ready. And so then you can download your results and then start enforcing your policies. Let me tell you a little bit more about each of these steps. So what do we mean by identifiers? We don't mean just DOIs, we're also taking public identifiers and public central identifiers. We don't take URLs yet, but there's no reason we couldn't. If people want that, then let us know. It's something we can add. So you basically give us a really simple spreadsheet. You can upload a CSV with a DOI column and or a public ID column and or a PMC ID column. And we'll use those identifiers to locate all the content and then look up all the information about it. And while you're sitting with your feet up, we'll be out working hard. As I said before, the 7 sources that we look at for data are here. So Crossref, we're mostly using bibliographic data. EuroPubmed Central has loads of information that's relevant to the Wellcome Trust, which is one we use in particular. They tell us things like whether the XML or full text is available. Core, and PETA down here, I'll give you a name check. Have an amazing service of aggregating content from UK institutions, actually more than UK institutions, sorry. For what's in the digital repositories, so we can find out what's in digital repositories. We're using Sherpa from our friends at JISC to look up embargo policies. We're using the Directory of Open Access Journals to understand the journal type. We're using GRIST, which is our our grants database in Europe. And where all of that fails, we go to publishers' websites and we page scrape the text until we find the stuff that we're looking for. And when that's done, we'll send you an email. So when you download the results, this is the sort of stuff you get some additional basic bibliography. We're not attempting to be a bibliography service. Most of the basic bibliography is for your convenience, and actually we gather it along the way anyway because we use it to look at other stats, so we give that to you. Then we find out, is the thing in a repository, and which repository is it in, or which repositories is it in. It's whether the publication appears in EuroPubmed Central, with some information about whether it's the author's manuscript, whether the XML is available, whether it's in the open access subset. We find the reviews for a license, that's the biggest pain, we're going to come back to talk about that in a minute. If it's available at CC BY, we'll be able to find out if it's CC BY. We look up the embargo information, we look up self-archiving policies for 3 different kind of defined types of articles, preprint, postprint, and published PDF, and we get the grant and PI information. And so when you have all of that, then you're ready to enforce your policy. We know that enforce is a strong word in higher education. In fact, even the Wellcome Trust, in terms of policing their policy, they don't actually enforce it just yet. Right now, their position is, if you don't meet the policy, that probably means you didn't understand it. We'll just check that you did understand it. And that the publisher understood it. And just remind you that this is what the policy actually says. But I mean, I can imagine in the future that those checks might become a little bit more strict. So that's how the system works. I don't want to dwell too much on it. There's not a lot really to show you because it's a CSV-based interface. I could give you a demo, it would be incredibly dull because I would upload a spreadsheet and then nothing would happen for 20 minutes, and then download a spreadsheet. So go away and do that yourselves. there'll be a URL, or catch me, or look on the tables outside, there are flyers with the URLs on it. But it's lantern.cottagelabs.com. Please feel free to play around with it. But what I want to kind of come around to talk about then is, what does it mean then for a service like this to exist as a business? Now, I don't know, is anyone familiar with Cottage Labs? Does anyone know who we are? Oh, that's my ego is slightly grown. Okay, so for those of you who don't, Cottage Labs is a small software development consultancy in the UK. We all have backgrounds in higher education, and we basically quit our day jobs and set up a consultancy because we love doing this kind of work. And we wanted to do more of it. We do a lot of open source development. Almost everything we build is released open source, including all of this software, incidentally. And so we've lived as a consultancy for a couple of years, 5 years now. And we're starting to find that some things that we build will maybe be best operated on behalf of the community by someone. Finding out who that someone is always a little bit tricky. So we've decided, or maybe it's us then, maybe we need to run some of this stuff. But in order to do that, we need to find a business model. We need to find a way to actually cover the cost of doing that. And when you're a consultant, it's easy because it's reasonably simple to say it's this much money for this amount of work. We'll do it. Here's the thing. Thanks for the money. When it comes to offering services, it's a little bit more vague, and I start to worry that we'll become other. Like an outsider bringing out things to the community, and that's not what we want. So we've been playing around with what the business models are. So the question essentially is, what is the correct community-focused business model for services to open access? Do people have opinions in the room about what that is? Stick your hand up if you've got an opinion about business models. Okay, no surprises. Okay. So I'd like to hear what you guys have got to say, and then feel free to throw this in the questions. But basically, we were looking at all kinds of models, and I listed a few there. I can go into tremendous detail over the kinds of things we looked at. But essentially, we decided to implement what we call a usage-based freemium model, which means that functionally, the software is the same whether you pay for it or not. And if you don't pay for it, you can still use it. There's just a limit to how much you can use it. And that seemed kind of fair because it means there's free access to everyone. And if you really are going to push a lot of data through the system, then you can sum up the cash. And that actually, there's a nice direct relationship between how many people use it and how much it costs us to operate, because it's quite computationally intense. So that's what we're going for. I'm interested to see whether that is something that people think is a good thing within this community, or are we making ourselves other? I don't know if we can discuss it now, but I would like to hear what people think, so do come and find me. And as sort of a part of that process then, remaining part of the community, is the question for us is how to engage the community. This is quite a new area as well, so we don't really know everyone's requirements yet. What we've got so far is built on requirements that we've acquired from the Wellcome Trust and from talking to JIT and from talking to our early adopters. But it's quite UK focused, so we'd like to see some people from outside the UK trying it out and telling us how it misses the stuff that they're interested in and all that kind of stuff. So these are some sort of seed ideas to, how can we kind of speak as a community about OA compliance and its many thrilling aspects. The first is actually managing license statements. I said we'd come back to this later. Long, tedious slide about license statements. We maintain a huge list of license statements that we've seen in the wild on publishers' websites. And once upon a time it was managed in a kind of crowdsourced environment, and basically it was almost impossible to use. Nobody really contributed to it. So now we're running it as a spreadsheet, and we operate that internally at Cottage Labs. So basically I have the job of looking after that spreadsheet and making sure it's up to date. But that might not scale, probably doesn't scale. So we're interested in how can the community tell us when a publisher has changed their licensing conditions, or whether there's a new publisher come on and what their conditions are, or whether we made a mistake and something's out of date. So I don't know. By the way, I don't know the answer to any of these questions. These are just I'm just throwing them out there to see what people think. The spreadsheet itself is really simple. On the left, what's the actual license type we're going to end up discovering? On the right, what text are we looking for in publishers' web pages? So sometimes it's obvious, sometimes we're just looking for the words Creative Commons non-commercial, but sometimes publishers have weird expressions of standard licenses and they put lots of fluff around them, and they can be difficult to detect. So we try and pick those things up. But they're quite brittle, publishers change their wording, and sometimes that's great. So we need to maintain this database in some way, shape or form. So that's one way that we might be able to get some community engagement. The other is around driving the metadata standards here. So license expressions are difficult, but they're not insurmountable. We've been working on this for a couple of years, so we've got reasonably good answers to questions about license statements. But the other thing that people are after in their OA policies is, has the funder been acknowledged in the paper and are the research data sets cited? And right now, it's almost impossible to tell. Certainly automatically, it's almost impossible to tell. And one of the reasons for that is that there's not really a good standard way of tagging an article with that information, either in the PDF or in the metadata. So we're interested in, does the community have ideas of how we can do that? Who is the correct body to drive the standardisation, and what should it look like? These seem like very long-term efforts. We're going to dive into this anyway and come back with some answers, hopefully from outside of how we might go about it. But it's not just for us to solve. The other obvious thing is, give us feature requests. We would love to hear what else people want to do. Some stuff on our roadmap include finding more information about objects in repositories. So especially, data deposit and things like that, which we don't currently capture. More data sources. We're looking at BASE, which is a similar kind of aggregation to core. As I might disagree with it, of course. And data research, this is a UK grants database, and are there any other grants databases we should be looking at? Results visualizations, we've started to play around with results visualizations, but are they really useful? If you're just uploading a spreadsheet, is that visualization of just that spreadsheet important, or is it not part of the feature set you expect from that? And then the other thing is we're interested in automatic checking of compliance. We already do this for the Wellcome Trust. If you give us an article, we have the information to determine whether it complies with the Wellcome Trust policy. We don't yet tell you that because we haven't decided how we're going to do automatic compliance checks, but the information at least is there. And that's kind of our last sort of other thing then is, how should we handle these compliance calculations? It's massively complicated how these policies are structured. There's been some good work by people like RawMap and Pastor4OA and OpenAir actually, who I've got to put on here, in understanding what the policies are and how they break down. RawMap is almost like a checkbox list of things. Does the policy have this, something like that? Can we use that to calculate compliance? Will it be accurate? We don't know yet. Those are the kinds of things we want to discuss. So sort of throwing those all out there as ways of giving back into the community the ideas that we're working on, and hopefully we can work together to build something that's better. How am I doing? In fact, this is really good. So basically, what next for Lantern, and to give you sort of a feeling as how reliable and stable it will be. Because obviously we're a new company in this area. We released the public beta actually at OR last year. We've been running it as a sort of basically just a free service for around about a year. Then about a month or two ago, we released a rewrite of the whole stack with all of the new technology, all the new funky bells and whistles. And we've been speaking to a bunch of early adopters. So we're quite pleased to be able to say we've got Brunel University, University of Cambridge, Wellcome Trust, and Wiley on board. So we've actually got institutions, funders, and publishers interested in this. Wiley was totally out of the blue because I had no idea that a publisher would be interested in this. And they came to us because they publish work that is funded by the Wellcome Trust, and they want to be sure that the stuff they're doing meets the Wellcome Trust standards, because otherwise they're going to have the Wellcome Trust in there asking them why they haven't done what they were asked to do. So we're kind of hopeful that this has kind of broad appeal across institutions, funders and publishers. And actually, excitingly, while I was here, I met several people who are using it that we didn't know were using it from the public beta. So if you have used it before, has anyone used it before? Has anyone in the room who used it while it was in public beta? So that's exciting for us. We've got all these new collaborations going on with these institutions. The other thing that's very exciting is that we are currently talking with JISC in the UK about integration with their Monitor products. And UK institutions, sorry, I do a lot of polling during my presentation. UK institutions? Okay, just all numbers back there. Okay. So in the UK, we have an amazing organisation called JISC who organise a lot of work in this sector. They have a product coming out quite soon called Monitor. Monitor is for managing APC payments and your kind of OA presence essentially within your institution. And part of what it needs to do is understand compliance. So we're talking with them about integrating Lantern directly into that product, so anyone who's using Monitor will get the benefit of being able to use Lantern directly. And for GIST essentially to be the front end, if you like, to Lantern within the UK. So that's pretty exciting. Early days at the moment, but we're basically in contract negotiation, which is quite exciting. And of course the other thing is we're constantly building more features. We've got an issue tracker which is on GitHub public. I should have put a link to it, but I forgot. If you go to Cottage Labs, GitHub, you will find everything we've written there, and it will be among all of that code. And we're basically just on a track to build more and new interesting bits for the software. So thank you for listening.